So if you haven't tried it out yet, the new League's endgame is absolutely amazing. This is easily some of the most fun that I have ever had playing the endgame. And that is in no small part to the new Atlas trees as well as some other nice goodies that we've gotten, and the Ritual League being pretty solid. The Ritual League in and of itself isn't anything too special, it's just a very, very simple, basic league that does its job of giving us some extra loot and giving us some extra monsters to kill. And honestly, at this point, I can't really ask for more than that. However, what we're really here to talk about are the Atlas trees, and yes, there is a 9th secret Atlas tree that was not spoiled early on, and we're just now beginning to get some of the information about it. It is an in-game Atlas tree focused on the in-game bosses. We're talking Elder, Shaper, the Conquerors, Cirrus, as well as some synthesis stuff and some Zana modifications. We'll talk all about that in a little bit, but this video is going to be mainly going over the Atlas trees, which nodes you should consider taking, and which ones are going to be the strongest and maybe the most fun. Hey guys, Big Ducks here, and welcome back to the channel. As you know, we are a little bit into the league now, and it's been getting pretty spicy. If you're enjoying my content, you're enjoying everything that I do, make sure that you like this video so that you can see more of it. Also, over 75% of you are still not subscribed to this YouTube channel. Somehow, even after all of the league start videos, all of the everything, still not subscribed. So make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can get these videos right in your feed. Without further ado, let's get into the guide. Alright boys, so we are going to be talking about the Atlas skill trees today. Now, if you have not gotten into the endgame, you're not going to have any idea what I'm talking about. However, the Atlas looks quite a bit different nowadays. So what we're going to be looking at mainly today are these skill trees right here. We're not going to be talking about the Maven, we're not going to be talking about her fight, any of that kind of stuff, only the bare necessities on explaining to you how to get these points and such. The first thing I want to say is that there are going to be timestamps down below to all of the different sections here, so if you want to know specifics or you want to come back to the video later and see which individual section is going to be what nodes or which ones that you should take, make sure that you check down below. So the first thing I want to talk about is how you actually unlock these skill tree points. So the way that this is going to go is that you are going to just begin doing the Atlas, randomly doing maps, and you're going to see this dude named the Envoy. He's going to come into your map, he's going to talk a whole bunch of stuff. You're probably not going to understand 3/4 of what he says, just mostly ignore him. You can talk to him if you like, but I honestly just kind of ignore him as much as possible. You can click him, he'll stop talking if you don't want him to talk too much, and then eventually the Maven will show up on one of your boss fights. Now the way that this is going to work is that while you are actually doing your maps, so let's say we take like a random T15 map that we've got here, you're going to get this little icon here that says, call the Maven to witness and affect this map's boss encounter. Now she's going to come into the boss, she's going to do a whole bunch of stuff like heal him a bunch, which is ridiculous, empower him, and if you do successfully kill the boss with the Maven there, she's going to absorb him for her like arena fight, which I'll talk about in another video, specifically talking about the Maven and her boss fights, and she is going to allow you to fight that boss in her arena. When you finally do get the invitation to her arena, which you'll see takes up to 6 here, this can go all the way up to 10, it starts at about 3. Once you do get invited to her arena and you successfully complete it, you will get 2 Atlas points for each one of these. Now, each individual Atlas section has a bunch of different types of modifiers that can be on it. They are all different, and as I said before, there is a secret endgame one, so if you're interested in that one, make sure that you watch all the way to the end of the video, because I'm going to talk about that one last, because I actually don't have it in game. You have to do some ridiculous things to get that one, and we'll talk about that later. So as I said, we're going to go over these one by one, left to right, top to bottom, so make sure that you check down below in the description if you need to jump to any specific section. First one we're going to talk about is Haewark Hamlet. So the different modifiers that we have in Haewark Hamlet are we have Harvest modifiers, we have Essence modifiers, we have Beyond modifiers, and we have June modifiers. So the idea here is that you're going to kind of see a theme here that whenever Harvest or whenever Delirium show up, you pretty much choose those most of the time. It's kind of just, those are some of the most powerful mechanics in the game. You don't have to choose them, but I'm going to recommend them every time. Harvest is insanely powerful, and this section of Harvest does a few interesting things. So beginning with the first node, this is the Grove's Call. Areas have plus 5% chance to contain the Sacred Grove. This is very basic, right? You also do get this minor node that says plants harvested in an area have 3% chance to give an additional crafting option. If you don't know, Harvest is different now. When you enter a map, you're going to get randomly just a harvest portal is going to show up. You go into the grove, you interact with some of the enemies there. You're going to have a choice between 2 little grove plots. You choose which seeds you want and you kill a bunch of enemies. I'll talk about this in another video, but the harvest groves are some of the most difficult content in the game right now. It's insane. I did a fight earlier today on stream at twitch.tv/bigducks, by the way, and we barely even survived. I didn't even complete it. The tier 4 bosses are ridiculous sometimes. However, let's continue. So with Harvest, this just gives us a plus 5% chance. Now keep in mind, all of these modifiers on these nodes act the same way that any item modifiers would in the game. So if it says increased or more, take into account that those mean what they say. The next node we're going to talk about down here is Wild Fruit. Harvest crops in areas have a 100% increased chance to contain a tier 4 plant. This does not guarantee a tier 4 plant every single time. It simply gives you a 100% increased. So if it's a 5% chance, it increases that by 100%. Does that make sense? And also we have here a 3% chance to give an additional crafting item. Same thing as before. Additional means it's additive. It adds on top of it. Whereas increased means that it is just increasing the percentage. And the last node we're going to talk about, and this is probably the best out of the 3 nodes in my opinion, is Nature's Favor. Plants harvested in areas give the rarest of 2 chosen crafting options. Now, out of these 6 nodes, I took all of them because I really wanted to see tier 4 seeds. Tier 4 seeds are amazingly overpowered. Ridiculously overpowered. I suggest that you don't actually even worry about these 2 nodes down here until you are very powerful, until your character is very, very strong. Because the tier 4 seeds will slap you up. I promise you, they're ridiculous unless you have a very powerful build. So my suggestion is your first 2 points should be going to Grove's Call, next 2 points should be going to Nature's Favor. You can grab this, but wait until your character is much stronger. In the meantime, you probably want to put a couple points elsewhere. Now, we do have other options here. What I want to say first and foremost is that I am not a fan of some of the masters. However, if you do want to focus specifically on the masters, keep in mind that these nodes are powerful. This is a generic mission node that just gives you 100% increased favor as well as 10% chance to grant an additional June mission. So that means you're going to get more June missions. Very simple node. And then we go up to bribery. This is going to give you more items, meaning if you're trying to unveil things, this is a good option to take. It's also going to drop more items when they're bargained with, meaning more unveiled stuff. This node down here in intelligence gathering is going to mean that you get 10 intelligence for a random Immortal Syndicate safe house. This can cause problems if you are trying to set up your board a very specific way, because if you get too much intelligence on something that you don't want to complete, this will just force intelligence into that area. That's more of a like high level mechanic, so make sure that if you don't know what you're talking about, you can probably just grab this and not worry about it. However, I am not a huge fan of the Syndicate, so I won't be taking any of these nodes myself. If you do like Syndicate and you are trying to push Syndicate, I would personally say take all 6 of these. And keep in mind, intelligence gathering you may not want to take if you know what you're doing and you're specifically trying to not complete certain safe houses. So you would just take these 4 and then probably take the other harvest ones. The next thing I want to talk about are these essence nodes. They're essence nodes. If you really are desperately looking for essence stuff, I guess you can use them. They're essence nodes. They're not that powerful anymore. Essences are cool. They're useful for some things. So if you specifically are trying to farm targeted essences, then you can maybe take these. However, I feel that the Beyond nodes are just significantly better because this is going to give us more density in our maps, meaning we're going to get more items, more monsters, more effect out of rituals. This is going to give us rare monsters in areas spawn an additional Beyond portal. Those are those little like circle little zones in Beyond that actually spawn the big boys. And unique bosses in areas spawn 5 additional Beyond portals when slain. That means you're just going to be able to get significantly more Beyond enemies. Remember, if you are not comfortable fighting multiple Beyond bosses, this is going to be a little risky because there's going to be a lot of them if you're taking these nodes. And the last one here is rare Beyond demons in areas have 35% chance to drop an additional basic currency item. A basic currency item is anything from a wisdom scroll to a mirror. It's just the basic items that can drop from any mob. So my personal choice, because I don't like June, is these 6 harvest nodes first. So we're going to go the Grove's Call, Nature's Favor, Wild Fruit, and then we're going to go Power Hungry and Per Demon. Those are the ones that I will personally take in order. You can skip out on Wild Fruit if you want to, if you're not confident in being able to kill T4 plants. And also, if you do want to go the June missions, I suggest that you go the Grove's Call, Nature's Favor, Focused Investigation, and then Bribery, and then you can choose what you'd like to do with your last one. You can either grab Wild Fruit or you can grab Intelligence Gathering, depending on what you want to do. That's what I suggest for Haewark Hamlet. This is a pretty good zone to farm. Harvest is very powerful. The Beyond portals are going to give you a ton of density in your maps, and if you want to farm June, this is the way to go. The Essence nodes are honestly very lackluster, and I don't suggest almost anyone get them unless you know exactly what you're doing. Moving on to the next section, we're going to be talking about Tirn's End. Now, Tirn's End has a couple interesting things in it. It has a Abyss section, it's got a Invasion section, a Delirium section, and one of the more interesting Einhar sections, and probably one of the most interesting things, all of the nodes of all of the trees, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're gonna start with invasion because I think this is one of the least useful ones here. Areas contain an additional invasion boss. It's kind of cool. I mean, you get an additional invasion boss. The exotic goods, meaning that invasion bosses in area drop 1 additional valuable item. As for what a valuable item is, think about like what a valuable piece of gear or item that drops from, say, the incubators. Think about like that. It's typically not too great. However, I could be wrong on this one. Keep an eye out for in the future. This might be good depending on what they decide what valuable items are. There may be some kind of farming strategy. However, at first glance, I really don't think this is too powerful. The next thing I want to talk about are the Abyss ones. These Abyss nodes more so seem like there's something for specific farming of either experience or very specific eye-level items. Because this first Abyss node, Underground Kingdom, gives you a 1% chance to contain an Abyss per 2% increased pack size. It means you can almost force it a lot of the time. It gives you a ton of chance to get them. It has a 100% increased chance to lead to an Abyssal Depths. Keep in mind, 100% increased chance does not mean 100% chance. And likewise, Abyssal Depths in area have a 100% increased chance to contain a Lich. 100% increased, not 100% chance. The next node is Lightless Legion. This is the thing I was talking about. It's going to give +3 monster level, 100% more magic and rare monsters, and 50% increased pack size. So keep in mind, what I said earlier about farming XP, if you're doing like T19 maps in this area, right? If you're doing some crazy like super high tier maps with a bunch of like +1 watchstones, you take that level and you add 3 to it in the Abyssal Depths, plus 100% more magic, 100% more rare, and 50% increased pack size, there is some potential for some very lucrative XP farming in here. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, that may be something you want to look at. The last node here being Buried Riches. Hordes and Abyssal Depths drop additional basic currency items. I mean, it's okay. Hordes drop additional basic currency items, doesn't give us a specific on how many they're going to drop, so this could be good, it could be bad. I'm not personally going to be caring too much about Abysses. There's way more lucrative things to be doing in this section than Abyss, in my opinion. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is Delirium. Now, Deliriums are notoriously very, very powerful while also being very difficult. That which you seek just gives us a flat, extra 10 additional chance to contain a Mirror of Delirium. It's basically doubling our standard chance because it's like a 10% chance for Delirium mirrors right now. We also do get 5% increased stack size of Simulacrum Splinters. That's okay, but it's not that powerful. Next thing we're going to talk about is Greater Forces. Delirium in areas increases 50% faster with distance from the mirror. Now, if you're not aware of the way that Delirium works, as you move deeper, and it's only distance from the mirror that matters here, you get higher percentages of the Delirium mechanic, and that causes you to gain more Simulacrum Splinters, as well as more loot, as well as the enemies get more difficult. This is going to make it so that those Deliriums increase 50% faster with distance from the mirror, meaning it's going to get 50% faster, it's going to get more difficult 50% faster. So this is very good for farming Simulacrum Splinters. The last node here is the Singular Entity. This is going to make it so that if you have issues with clearing Deliriums in time, this is going to give you a little bit of a buffer, so when you're first originally starting out, this can be a good node to take, and then as your build becomes faster and stronger and more able to handle these, you can remove this node later. There is a specific currency item that you can use to remove these nodes. We can talk about that at another time. And then the last and most interesting section of literally the entirety of these trees are these Einhar nodes. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is Big Game. Red beasts in areas have 15% chance to appear in pairs. That's pretty solid because there's a lot of very interesting red beasts that have really good crafting options. And then yellow beasts in areas have 30% chance to be replaced with red beasts. So this feeds into each other, right? It can be replaced with a red beast, and then those red beasts can pair, right? So red beasts tend to have the best modifiers in the game over the yellow beasts, which really don't have anything too interesting. This next node is the one that I'm talking about. The Great Migration. Areas with Einhar missions have 5% chance to contain additional packs of beasts instead of other monsters. Now, I can't 100% confirm this, however, from what I read on this and from what I have heard from other people, what this means is that instead of normal packs of monsters spawning in your map, like if you see maybe like a yellow pack, right? Or a blue pack or something like that, instead of those, you are going to get packs of beasts. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't mean that every single monster in the zone is going to be a beast. It means that packs, like say if you have a yellow monster surrounded by some other monsters, right? That pack will be replaced by a beast pack. This is ridiculous. This could mean like 20 to 30 beasts in a map. It's insane. It's a 5% chance and only a 5% chance on those Einhar missions, but boys, I'm taking it because I want to see that. It sounds hilarious. Because if this procs, you can get all your boys in the map with you and get a ton of currency off of this. A ridiculous amount. I highly suspect that this is going to be heavily abused and we're going to see a ridiculous amount of red beast like things on the market. Because if you farm for this and you proc that additional beasts and they're all over the place, you get 5 other people in the map with you, each of you gets a red beast every time that they're captured. Meaning you're going to times the amount of beasts that you're going to get by 6. There's some insane stuff that you can do with Tirn's Inn. Don't overlook this one. It is very, very powerful, especially if you want to abuse it. Great Migration looks like it might be insane. All right, so the next area that we're going to talk about is Lex Proxima. Now, Lex Proxima has a couple interesting things. We once again have Harvest. This is on 2 sections here. I don't know why they didn't decide to just put the Harvest stuff here and keep it together and then put Seance up there. I don't know, that would make sense to me, but that's kind of nitpicking here. We have the Harvest stuff. We've got Seance, which is Tormented Spirits. We have Breaches, and we also do have Voltaxic Sulfite, meaning Nico, meaning Delve. I'm going to start out with the most interesting node out of this whole section here, and one of the coolest nodes in the entirety of the Atlas, and that is Seance. Now, some people saw this and like, oh, that sounds cool. This is ridiculous, and I will tell you that after testing this myself, Seance is insane. What this does is it actually makes 20 rare packs just have an inhabited spirit, and all of the spirits with them are touched. Now, there is this specialty spirit that you can get that you might see sometimes. I don't remember exactly what his name is. Maybe it's the Forager or something like that. It's a spirit with like a red and a blue little circle around him. That, when it inhabits an enemy, drops a bunch of currency. This is a good way to farm tons of currency, like a ridiculous amount of currency. I've had people in my community on stream telling me about just spam farming T16 maps in Lex Proxima, and they are getting like exalts per hour, just dropping from just specifically those Seance mobs because they're just spamming them constantly. This might be kind of ridiculous. I would not skip out on Seance. No matter what you do, I would say to choose Seance. Now, let's talk about a couple of the other things. First thing I want to talk about is Breach. These Breach nodes are a little lackluster in my opinion. There are some like bait things here that look like they're really good, but I don't actually think they're as good as they seem. Let's talk about Invading Forces first. Breaches in areas have 30% increased area of effect. Breaches in areas have 30% increased monster density, and breach monsters in areas grant 50% increased experience. This looks good at first glance, but keep in mind, 30% increased area and 30% increased monster density is nice. However, it 1 requires that it loads into a good zone. It 2 requires that you're actually able to clear all of the breach in time. And 3, breaches, when they get large like that, the increased density is not really going to be too insane, because with it being so large, there's going to be so much room to move through. It's still going to rely on so many other things. There are just better nodes than this, honestly. The next node that we're going to be talking about here is Gatekeepers. Breaches in areas have 100% increased chance to contain a boss, 100% increased. Breach bosses in areas drop double breach splinters. Did we care about breach splinters to begin with? Not really. Breach bosses defeated in areas have 5% chance to drop a breach stone. This looks good on paper. You're like, oh man, I can just randomly get a Chayula breach stone. How often do you see the breach bosses when you randomly do breach nodes and it's a 5% chance? That means that if you see 20 breach bosses, I don't even think I saw 20 breach bosses in the entirety of last league. One of them would drop a stone, and that's if you're like on par lucky, right? And then the last node is Within Their Grasp. Breach bosses defeated in areas have 5% chance to drop a breach stone, so that increases it to 10%, meaning that it's 1 out of 10. I still don't know if I saw 10 total. And then it says breach stones dropped by breach bosses have a 9% chance to be charged, 3% chance to be enriched, and 1% chance to be pure. This looks good. It's trash, in my opinion. If you have a 1 out of 10 breach bosses will drop a stone, and then 9% of those are able to drop a charged one, the amount of bosses you would be required to see a pure breach stone drop is astronomical. Legitimately, it's ridiculous. I think these nodes are all trash. I just really honestly don't feel that they're worth it. If you really like Breach, by all means. Next thing we're gonna talk about is these Nico nodes. Now, if you are a fan of Delve, this is going to be fixing a lot of the issues that people had with Delve with farming sulfite, among other things. Rich Veins, the first node that you have to get here. Voltaxic sulfite veins in chests and areas have 10% chance to contain double sulfite and contain 20% increased sulfite. This is just a flat, huge percentage increase to how much sulfite you're gonna get. The next node here is sulfite infusion. This is big. White, yellow, and red tier maps grant an additional 200, 350, and 500 additional Voltaxic sulfite on completion. That just means all maps in the zone will grant you that much sulfite every time you finish them. So you can just run maps, fill up your sulfite after running some maps, and be done. You don't have to do anything with any scarabs. You don't have to do master missions. It would be better if you do those things, but you don't have to. You can just run maps. That's one of the biggest biggest problems that most people have had with Delve. And the last thing is Packed with Energy. This is interesting. It would be good for people who are just literally just trying to get back into Delve constantly. They kind of knew their target audience with this one. You get increased damage for each vein or chest found in the area and increased movement speed. So you can get up to 3 chests. So you can get up to 45% increased movement speed and 105% increased damage. It's pretty good, but I mean, like, this is mainly for people who are just trying to zip zoom through there and get what they can. And last, let's talk about Harvest. Harvest is pretty much always worth taking in my opinion. First note here, Harvest and areas have doubled bonuses to item quantity and rarity. That's good. I mean, it is what it is. The Sacred Grove in areas contains an additional harvest. This is huge, and a whole additional harvest that you can choose from. The Sacred Grove in areas has a 100% increased chance to contain the Heart of the Grove. Harvest in areas have 10% chance for the unchosen crop to not wilt. The first part of this, I don't really care about Heart of the Grove. That's the Oshabi fight. That fight honestly is not that good. Drops from it aren't that great. It's really annoying. She has a ton of health. Not too excited about that. Part that is good, 10% chance for an unchosen crop to not wilt. Pretty solid. 10% chance to just get an additional harvest, essentially. And then the last node, harvest monsters in areas grant 200% increased experience, and harvested plants in areas have 50% chance to spawn an additional monster. This is okay. This is what you would choose if you had nothing else to get, right? Like, this is decent. I personally, what I would choose, I would go Seance first. I would then go Bumper Crop and Heart of the Grove, because these 6 are very, very good. The next 4 that I would get, it would depend on whether or not I cared about Delve. If I did not care about Delve, I would go Bountiful Harvest, and then I would go Invading Forces, just because there's nothing else to get, really. Now, if you are interested in Delve, I would say these 2 nodes are necessary for farming Delve. This one, I'm not so huge about. I honestly think you can do without this one. I think that you should take the Harvest and the Seance nodes instead. So if you like Delve, you can go Rich Veins and then Sulfide Infusion, and then Seance, Bumper Crop, and Heart of the Grove. If you don't like Delve, I would do Seance, Bumper Crop, Heart of the Grove, Bountiful Harvest, and Invading Forces. Those are what I would personally do to get the best bang for your buck, because these nodes honestly are kind of bait, if I'm being real with you, and I'm not a huge fan of Delve, so that's what I would do. Now, moving on to Ejoris, this one has some interesting things as well. Here we have Delirium, Pyrrhondus, Metamorph, and then we've got Incursion nodes. Now, a couple of these in here, honestly, I feel are complete and utter trash. And those are the Pyrrhondus ones. Honestly, Ritual is just Pyrrhondus, but better. I kind of hoped that they would be moving Pyrrhondus out of the game, because I really, really don't like Pyrrhondus. It's kind of just annoying. I never like picking up the little pennies off of each map, and him offering the rarest of 5 chosen items, I really don't care. Contain an additional Pyrrhondus chest, cool. I guess we get more pennies, right? Like, areas have a 20% chance to contain Kadiro Pyrrhondus. I guess that's cool. Ritual is literally just Pyrrhondus, but better. So in Ejoris, those 2 nodes are basically just dead to me. I really don't think that they're that great. Next thing I want to talk about are these Incursion nodes. This Vol Flesh Merchant, people were confused as to what this is. This is just an extra unique mob that spawns in each of the Incursion areas, and apparently he drops some basic currency. That's what this mob is. It's nothing special. It's a cool node. Put some extra dudes in there. So if you're going to do Incursion, you might want to grab this one. The other Incursion nodes are, this is the generic Alva node, where you just have 10% more chance to grant an additional mission and you get more favor. And then this node, Time Dilation, increases 1 additional rare Incursion item, and time games from killed is doubled. This is if you're not so great at Incursions, so you can get this node if you want, and it also gives you an additional rare item. If you're going to do Incursions, you might as well take these. However, we are competing with Delirium and Metamorph here, so this is kind of a hard ask. Next thing we're going to talk about is Metamorph. Now, these are pretty interesting. Honestly, it kind of seems like you'd be a madman to choose these. I'm probably going to choose these, but that's just because I'm a little crazy. Finest samples. Metamorphs in areas deal 50% more damage and have 100% more life, and 50% chance for rewards for Metamorphs in areas to be doubled. This is straightforward, you know what this does. Areas contain a rogue metamorph. So keep in mind, a rogue metamorph most likely means that it's just going to be a random assortment of parts. You don't get to choose what it does. You don't get to choose how powerful it is. You don't get to choose what it drops. This is scary. Honestly, metamorphs are some of the scariest things in the game. This just means that you got a random one with all kinds of random like specs and everything just running around, just booking it through your map. Be ready to die. Don't choose this on hardcore. Honestly, just straight up don't choose this on hardcore. And now let's talk about Delirium. So Deliriums have a 10% chance to have layers of Delirium. So that means that you're going to have maps just will randomly have Delirium layers. So this is pretty solid. You're just going to have like percentages of Delirium on the maps, right? Next thing we're going to talk about is Persecutory Delusions. Delirium encounters in areas are 100% more likely to spawn unique bosses, 100% increased Simulacrum Splinters, and 100% increased chance to drop unique Cluster Jewels. These Cluster Jewels do not include Voices. Voices is from the Simulacrum only. Keep that in mind. Because we're going to get layers of delirium in the area, right? Just percentage layers of delirium. It is random from what I've heard. So keep in mind, you might just randomly run into maps that are almost impossible to do. Keep that in mind. Delirium encounters in area are 100% more likely to spawn bosses. That means you're going to see the big slash boss and the big beam boss 100% more likely. Doesn't mean 100% chance. You get more splinters, you get more unique cluster jewels. That's talking about things like the skill, like the keystone cluster jewels. And then the last node is delirium encounters in area have 15% chance to generate 3 additional reward types. These nodes are nuts. So talking about what I would personally do, keep in mind deliriums are tough. Layers of delirium are going to be very tough. I personally would go pathological, I would then go compulsive hoarder, I would then go persecutory delusion, and then I would go finest samples and escaped experiment. These metamorph ones make it very dangerous, extremely dangerous. If you are worried about dying, I suggest choosing literally anything else. You can choose Vol Oligarchs and time and again if you want. You can choose the Perondus nodes. I think that they're bad, but they're better than the Metamorph nodes if you're just worried about dying. I'm gonna go with these because they're cool. So my personal opinion is go Pathological, Compulsive Hoarder, Persecutory Delusion, and then make a decision for yourself. Do you want to die or do you want to just have a little bit extra loot? And if you like Alva, honestly, these Alva nodes are kind of so I don't really like them either way. But if you really like Alva and you really want to do incursions, then you could choose like Vol Oligarchs and time and again, or you could even drop Persecutory Delusions and just take these 2 and then these 3. That's probably what I would say. However, still, Delirium and Metamorph, that's my personal choice. Now, the next one we're going to be talking about is New Vastir. So New Vastir is going to be giving us Abyss once again. It's going to be giving us Delve nodes. It is also going to be giving us Legion as well as additional Rogue Exiles. These nodes are pretty interesting. We're going to start with Rogue Exiles. Areas contain an additional Rogue Exile for every 2 additional content types applied to areas. This is interesting when you first think about it because for each 2 additional content types, meaning that if you have like Legion and Breach on there, you'll get an additional Rogue Exile every time and so on and so forth. So if you pack like 8, it's going to have 4 additional Rogue Exiles. The next node is going to make it so that wild Rogue Exiles in areas have 15% chance to have additional rewards. This just means that they're going to drop like an additional reward. Think of like something like the Legion Stones would drop, right? So that's all that that's going to be. Nothing too special. It's kind of cool, right? The next one we're going to talk about is Abyss. Abyss monsters in areas grant 50% increased experience, and they spawn 100% more monsters. Abyssal troves in areas have 10% chance to drop a rare item, and +3 to level of Abyssal troves in areas. They also have 200% increased item quantity. I'm not a huge fan of Abyss. These are okay if you literally have nothing else to choose, but we got Legion in here, and that's pretty solid. So I don't think these are going to be super great. You could maybe choose them. We'll talk about it in a minute. If you like Delve, this is going to be another chance for you to get some additional Sulfite. We've got just the generic Nico node, meaning you're going to see him more often. We have Sulfite Sentinels, which means that you're going to have monsters that are guarding the actual Sulfite chest that hoard Sulfite. So you're going to get more after killing them. And then the last node is Sulfite veins and chests in areas have a 5% chance to also contain an equal amount of Azurite. This is cool, but I don't think it's as cool as it might seem. Azurite's kind of useless. I don't think this one is good. These 2 are fine. In New Vastir, I think the most important ones that you're going to be getting are the Legion nodes. Legion in areas contain 3 additional Sergeants. Sergeants in areas always have rewards. This just means 3 more big yellow boys, they always have rewards. Excellent node. The next one here is War Supplies. Each Legion in areas contains an additional War Horde. Each Legion in the areas, meaning the map, contains an additional War Horde, meaning you're going to get an additional one in each of the Legions. That's huge, very huge. And then we have Emblematic. Timeless Splinters dropped by Legion monsters in areas have a 1% chance to drop as Timeless Emblems instead. Now you remember how I told you that the Breachstone one was bait? This is not bait. This is ridiculous. So this means that Timeless Splinters, each Timeless Splinter that drops has a 1% chance to drop as a Timeless Emblem. That means that for every 100 Splinters that you just find a full emblem. That's nuts. That's ridiculous. Honestly, it's one of the most ridiculous things I've seen on here. It's pretty insane. So if on average you find like 500 of these Splinters, you're gonna get 10 full emblems every 500 Splinters. That's nuts, dude. We're gonna be seeing a lot more Timeless Emblems, a ton more of them. They're probably gonna go down in price. You'll be able to run these a lot more if you want to. Should be pretty fun. Now, as for what I think that you should choose, the obvious choices, the first 6 nodes are very easily War Supplies and then Emblematic and then high value targets. Those first 6 almost seem guaranteed for almost anyone playing the game. I don't think anyone would question that for the most part. Those are nuts nodes. I think that you always take those. As for the next two, it's kind of a toss-up. Honestly, I personally think that it's kind of a toss-up between these two. If you like Delve and you want Sulfite, you choose these two. That's a very obvious choice. You just take those. No problem whatsoever. Beyond that, it gets a little bit more tough. If you're Omega juicing your maps, I think that the Total Anarchy and Rogue Trader ones are better, just on average, because you're going to get a lot of these Rogue Exiles going on. If you're not super mega juicing your maps, then maybe the Abyss nodes might be better. You'll get +3 to levels, you'll get some cool items, you'll get a bunch of extra enemies. They're going to have a bunch of extra items drop from the chests. You're going to give you more experience. It should be pretty cool. It'll put some more density in your maps if you like doing abysses. I think that I personally will choose these. If you like Nico, you're going to go War Supplies, Emblematic, High Value Targets, Mad Devotion, and then Sulfite Sentinels. If you don't like Nico and you don't want to do Delve, you're going to do War Supplies, Emblematic, High Value Targets, and then you're just going to choose whichever of the two paths that you like. I personally am going to go this way. Now, moving on to Glennach Cairns. In Glennach Cairns, we're going to have Beyond, we're going to have Legion, we are going to have the Incursion again, and we are also going to have Strong Boxes. This one, once again, it has Legion, so it's going to be highly contested to be going Legion. However, let's talk about Strong Boxes first. Twice Tempted gives us area contains an extra Strong Box. Strong Box and areas have 10% chance to be openable a second time. This is cool at first glance, however, a 10% chance on every Strong Box, you're probably going to very rarely get good ones that allow you to open it twice. And then tamper-proof means that they're corrupted and rare. This is going to be a good, just random addition to the area. However, I think that you're not really going to be allowed to take these most of the time unless you're really focusing on strong boxes, because the other nodes in here are pretty ridiculous. So now if you like incursions, this is a good region for you. Cultural advancement means incursion monsters in areas are at least magic. That's pretty nuts. Every monster in the area is magic. That's pretty crazy. I'm not going to lie. That's a very powerful node. So if you like incursions, this is going to be the zone for you. You're really going to like this zone. Resource reallocation means that killing non-resident architects has a 50% chance to add an additional upgrade tier to the surviving architect's room. So what that means is there is a 50% chance that when you kill the architect, the other one that you save is going to get 2 upgrades. He's going to upgrade an additional tier, right? So you're going to get an upgrade to him. And then on top of that, with contested development, killing resident architects in areas adds their upgrade tier to the surviving architect's room. You get these two together, you have a chance to get an instant tier 3 room. That's crazy. We're going to get a ton of access to tier 3 rooms. That means more double corrupts, more gem corrupts, all kinds of cool stuff. So if you like incursion, this is the thing to go. However, GGG in their infinite wisdom have all put a bunch of highly contested things all together, and we've got Legion here. So Monumental is the generic. Areas have 10% additional chance that contain a Legion encounter. And beyond that, we have Face to Face. Legion encounters in areas are 100% more likely to include a general, 100% more likely, not 100% chance. Generals in areas will have both generals, and generals in areas drop 100% more timeless splinters. So that means if you have one general, you're guaranteed to have both of them, and they will drop 100% more splinters. And then protracted battle means that Legion encounters in areas have 50% increased duration, and Legion monsters in areas take 50% increased damage while in stasis. This makes it significantly easier to clear these legions. So if you're having trouble clearing these, this is going to be very good, especially because when the generals do pop up, say you're using scarabs to force the generals in there, you're going to have 2 generals, and they're going to both be on complete opposite sides of the map, so you're really going to need this to be able to get that done. And then the last one is Beyond. Now, Scent of Blood simply just gives a 3% chance to attract monsters from Beyond. This just puts Beyond on every single map. That's kind of spooky, and also pretty good. The next node that we have here is Torn Veil. Powerful Beyond demons require 1 fewer portals to summon in areas, and Beyond portals in areas have 100% increased merging radius. You're going to get a lot of Beyond monsters here. Now, as for my choice, the idea is that if you like incursions, you take all the incursion nodes. It's not even a question, you take all 3 of these. I would personally go Cultural Advancement, Resource Reallocation, and Contested Development. Those are like guaranteed you take them no matter what. Now from this point, if you like incursion, you have a choice. I personally would say that you would go with the Legion nodes. You'd probably go Monumental, absolutely. You have a choice between these two. I personally think it's Face to Face. I think that's what you would choose. Now, if you don't like Legion, you can either choose Beyond or you can choose Strong Boxes. Either of these are good. I think they're equally good if you're choosing, if you're going to be choosing incursions. However, my personal choice for doing this is I like Legions and I like Beyond. So what I'm going to be doing is I would be going Monumental, Protracted Battle, Face to Face, Scent of Blood, and Torn Veil. That's what I'm personally going to be doing because I'm not too interested in incursions. However, this is nuts. Don't sleep on these because this is going to give you like tier 3 corruption rooms. If you're one of those players that really likes to push their character and push into some high-end stuff and be able to do really cool things, don't sleep on these. These are very, very good. I would suggest this. However, I'm going to go Legion and then Beyond. Instead of Beyond, you can choose Strong boxes, but I really like Beyond. Next we're going to be talking about is going to be Valdo's Rest. Now in Valdo's Rest we have access to Blight, we have Metamorph once again, we have Immortal Syndicate, meaning that this is going to be Syndicate, and then also we're going to have Harbinger. Now Harbinger ones, honestly this is another one of those like, it kind of reminds me of essentially the Essence one. I don't really think anybody's going to be taking these. It's cool, it's Harbinger if you literally had nothing else, but we've got some pretty interesting stuff here. If you hated Blight and hated Metamorph, then maybe you could take these, but let's first talk about them. Additional Harbinger, and then the Harbingers and areas are joined by reinforcements. You know what you're getting. It's just some extra Harbingers. Let's talk about the Immortal Syndicate, however. The defeated Immortal Syndicate members grant 3 intelligence for the current encounter's safe house if they're not interrogated, meaning that if you don't interrogate that person, they will generate 3 intelligence. This is pretty good if you're trying to cycle through them constantly and not just trying to keep the same people in the same places. Immortal Syndicate members executed in an area have a 100% chance to gain an additional rank. This is also very good if you're trying to just push through the ranks constantly. This doesn't really do very much for you if you're just trying to set up your board and keep them exactly where they're already at. However, if you're trying to push through the ranks really fast and get like items to drop off of Katarina and such, this is a very, very good option. And the next thing that we're going to be talking about here is Metamorph. So Intrinsic Darkness. Now this is just the generic 10% additional chance to contain Metamorphs. If you like Metamorphs, you can go this node. And then we have Repeated Experiment, which is that you can assemble an additional Metamorph in the area after the first is dead. This seems pretty decent because you're just going to be able to make another Metamorph. Seems pretty good. You'll be able to use up some more of those unique items. Metamorph bosses which drop an itemized sample drop an additional itemized sample, and the Metamorph fat meters in areas require 50% less power to fill. This means that you're almost guaranteed to get 4 organs every single time that you do a Metamorph map. If you like Metamorph, this is very good. Next thing is going to be Blight. This is just generic 10% chance to get a Blight. Blight Titans is going to mean that Blight bosses in area drop an additional anointed jewelry item. That means that, you know, the anoints that you can do to get the random nodes around the tree. And Blight encounters in areas contain up to 2 additional Blight bosses. That means you're going to get 2 pieces of anointed jewelry. This is okay. I don't think it's amazing. It's okay. Blight encounters in areas are more likely to contain multiple lanes, and lanes of Blight encounters in areas have 50% chance for an additional reward chest. If you like Blight, you go these nodes. If you like Metamorph, you go the Metamorph nodes. Honestly, Valdo's Rest I feel is very, very lackluster. I don't like any of this. I think this is one of the weakest trees in the whole of the Atlas, unless you like Metamorph. I personally would go the 3 Metamorph nodes, Intrinsic Darkness, Repeated Experiments, and High Yield, and then I would probably take Outbreak and then maybe Mass Mycelium. I just think that this is probably the best bang for your buck that you're going to get. If you do like the Immortal Syndicate, you can take these nodes, but Harbingers are kind of bad. If you literally have nothing else that you like, you can do Harbingers, but for me, it's very easily Metamorph and then Mass Mycelium and Outbreak. But Valdo's Rest, a little weak, unfortunately, compared to most of the rest of them. And the last place that we're going to be talking about is Lira Arthain. Here we have Heist modifiers, we have Blight, which are once again split in half for some reason, which I don't understand. We have Breach modifiers, and we have Einhar modifiers. And these are some interesting Einhar modifiers. Once again, Einhar has gotten some very interesting things, to say the least. So first, let's talk about the actual Heist modifiers. Areas have 10% chance to contain a Smuggler's Cache. This is just generic, 10% more often. And then Inside Job is Smuggler Caches in areas have a 100% increased chance to drop blueprints, and blueprints have a 10% chance to be fully revealed. If you like Heist, this is the node to take. It's amazing. Very, very good. You get blueprints and they're possibly fully revealed. Very, very solid. And then we have Blight. Immune response just means that we're going to get 100% more monsters in the area and they'll spawn faster. This means you'll be able to get through your Blight encounters significantly faster and there's going to be more of them. If you have difficulty with Blight, don't choose this one. The other node is going to be Spores on the Wind. Maps found in areas have 10% chance to have an area contains an additional Blight encounter. That means that we are going to have an additional. So if there's already a Blight encounter there, it could be another one. Interesting, right? Otherwise, this is just a generic contains an additional Blight encounter, right? Blight chests in areas have 100% more chance to contain blighted maps, 100% more chance Not 100% chance, 100% more chance. And blighted maps found in areas are anointed. This is good because you might just randomly luck into like a triple golden anointed map. That might be pretty cool. Moving on, we have breaches. Areas have 10% chance to contain breaches. Generic 10% increase more chance. Breaches in areas spawn 10 additional rare monsters and open and close 100% faster. This is pretty whatever. It would just be something you'd take if you didn't like anything else here. And then we have the Einhar nodes. Animal Companion is the generic Einhar node. More favor, more chances to get Einhar. We have natural selection, which means that beasts in areas are more likely to be less common varieties. This means that on average, you're going to get cooler beasts, meaning the ones that take you to like the endgame portals, the ones that drop the cool items, all that kind of stuff. And then we have Mighty Hunter. Einhar has a 100% increased cooldown recovery rate in areas, deals 1000% more damage to unique monsters in areas, and remains in areas after his mission is complete. If you thought that Einhar was overpowered before, look out, because he's ridiculous now. I think that this node is kind of bait, if we're being honest, but there's not really a lot that's good here. So my personal choice, if I'm going to be choosing things, would be that I would take Animal Companion, Natural Selection, and then I would probably take all of the Blight nodes just because I think that it's more interesting. Keep in mind, you can take Mighty Hunter if you really want to. I think it's funny. If you really want to just be hard carried by Einhar in these maps all of the time, and you want him to stick around for bosses or there's like a hard boss that you can't beat, I'm going to take Animal Companion, Natural Selection, Spores on the Wind, Epidemiology, and then Immune Response. If you like Heist, simply remove Immune Response and potentially Epidemiology if you really don't like it, and grab the Heist nodes. I personally am just going to go Animal Companion, Natural Selection, Immune Response, Spores on the Wind, Epidemiology. And that's pretty much it for the tree. I've talked about all 8. However, there is an additional one that I don't have access to in the game because you have to do some pretty ridiculous things. This is mostly speculative, and keep in mind, we're going to be jumping over to a window here on my browser so we can take a look at some of the things that we've got here. It's going to be a little insane. Okay, so we're over here on pewdb.tw. This is going to be the Atlas tree for the endgame stuff. Now, as far as I'm aware, the way that you are able to get into here is that you have to take the 4 Elder Guardians into a fight with the Maven at the same time. I don't know that 100% that that's the way that you do it. Let me know down in the comments if you know exactly how this happens, because I'm just hearing things from people at this point. We don't have full information on this, but some of these nodes are insane, okay? So the nodes that we've got here are, we've got synthesis nodes, which I'm super excited about if you know anything about me. We've got Zana specific nodes that just give you like Zana mission type stuff. We have nodes that are specific to like, think about the bonuses that you get from the Atlas normally. This is like extra additional chances, like unique bosses have chances to drop Shaper Guardian maps. Some pretty interesting things with like the Shaper and the Elder and things like that. And then we have some nodes that will be doing things like +1 to Awakening level. We're gonna be able to go to Awakener 9. I don't know what that means. Things are going to be getting more difficult, but let's begin with the Zana nodes. Now, the first Zana node that we're going to be getting here is Master of the Atlas. Areas have 5% chance to grant an additional Zana mission, 100% increased favor. This is the generic Zana node. We're also going to have Zana missions in areas have double the number of map options and have additional maps that can appear in the map options. I don't exactly know what this means. It just means that when Zana gives you a mission, it'll probably double the amount of missions that she has available, and they have additional maps that can appear in the map options, meaning there's potentially new and specific kinds of maps that couldn't appear before that can appear now, is what I would expect that this means. Maybe there's something special in here. Who knows? I'm not sure. And then the last node up here is just going to be a generic like Masters node. Gain 1 additional Master Atlas mission from each Master each day. 10% chance to grant an additional Master mission on completion. This one seems kind of I'm not a huge fan of it. And then we do have the Synthesis modifiers. Now, if you know me, I love Synthesis, and these are kind of interesting. I don't know how exactly I feel about them, but let's go over them. Neural Pathways, 0.5% chance for a Synthesis map to drop from unique bosses tier 11 plus. I like that, just a chance to get some synthesis maps. It gives you an extra chance. They already had a chance to drop. This just adds some more chance to it. 100% increased effect of additional modifiers on unique synthesis maps. Monsters and synthesis maps have a 1% chance to drop synthesized items. That's okay. The modifiers typically are pretty interesting, but I mean, we'll see. On unique synthesis maps, I'm not sure that that's amazing. It seems cool, but we get lots of synthesized items from Ritual right now, so maybe in the future. Unique bosses of synthesized maps drop a well-rolled fractured item, and synthesized unique items drop in areas have have 3 synthesized implicit modifiers. This is massive if you are farming synthesis items. Massive, ridiculous. Next thing we want to talk about are just some of these generic nodes. 25% increased effective watchstone modifiers. Pretty nuts because we're going to be getting specific watchstones like craftable ones and such. This is pretty nuts. We're going to be getting sextant modifiers have 1 additional use. This is cool, nothing too special. We're going to be getting unique bosses have 3% chance to drop a Shaper or Elder Guardian map. That's cool, more Shaper Elder Guardian maps. We're gonna get Guardian's Aid. Shaper and Elder Guardians are healed and joined by an ally on first reaching 33% life. Allies have a chance to drop their unique items and fragments. What I see from this is this means that they're gonna call one of their other guardians to come and help them. So if you're fighting Minotaur, he could summon Hydra. This seems a little insane. The end game is going to be getting a lot more difficult if you choose a node like this. They can still drop their unique items and fragments. This is interesting. And the last node on this portion, the Elder has an additional 10% chance to drop a Watcher's Eye. If you like farming Watcher's Eye, this is the thing for you. Shaper drops 3 additional Shaper items. Pretty cool. And then the very interesting ones. These are the Cirrus and Conqueror ones. The first one that we have is Adept Tracker. 25% chance on completing a map influenced by a Conqueror of the Atlas to gain double progress towards their citadel. Meaning if you're trying to farm Cirrus, you got a lot faster time getting to them. Then we also do have Thaumaturgical Awakening. Cirrus Awakener of Worlds has 50% increased chance to drop an Awakened support gem. 50% increased chance, not a 50% chance. And then the last one that we've got is +1 to Awakening level. This means that you're going to get all of the benefits of your Awakener level +1, meaning they're going to have more life, more chance to drop items, all that kind of good stuff. These are kind of insane, and honestly, I don't even really have like suggestions on what's good here. We really don't know. At first glance, my initial gut instinct is that the ones that you're going to want to take are most likely going to be whatever you enjoy farming. So for me, I enjoy synthesis maps and I enjoy Cirrus, so I'll probably be going like Neural Pathways, probably going to be getting Synthetic Source. I'll probably grab Adept Tracker and then Thaumaturgical Awakening and then Atlas Awaken. That's probably what I will get. And then maybe you can move the synthesis maps out for other ones if you wanted. I actually missed this one. Zona missions and areas have up to 30 additional packs of Shaper and Elder monsters. That's cool, I guess. But I do think that the additional options, this is a very interesting one. So you could go this one as well. The rest of these seem cool. But I would just say choose what you want. However, at the end of the day, the end game is getting significantly more difficult. Significantly more difficult. So this is a little nuts. I'm excited to try these kinds of things out, so we'll see how this goes. All right, boys, and that's going to be it. I know there's very few of you, because this is a super long video, that are actually going to be watching this, but if you do need additional help, make sure that you join my Discord. The link is down below. If you want to catch me live, if you enjoy all of the content that I've been putting out, make sure that you follow me on twitch.tv/bigducks. Also, like this video if you enjoyed it and want to see more of it, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this, and stay safe out there in Ray Class. And I'll see you guys in the next video.